We're joined now by Peter Bleksley, former Metropolitan Police detective, to talk about this awful murder of Sara Sharif by her father and stepmother, who now face sentencing, hopefully to life behind bars. A lot of you saying the noose would be more suitable for them. But Peter Bleksley, once again, we've just had the Prime Minister making his statement, questions need to be answered. Everyone's saying lessons need to be learned. How do we prevent this from happening again to yet another small child? Because there are so many names that we could use of children we know about, ignoring the many, many other children we never know the names of.
The way that matters like this should be dealt with, and let me just reinforce here that poor Sara was at risk from the day she was born, and the authorities knew this. What needs to happen in order to prevent this kind of case is that social workers, those who work in education, and police officers have to go on a relentless journey to discover the truth. If there's insufficient evidence and yet there appears to be something clearly amiss, then you must drill down, search deeper, seek further afield, do more inquiries, and establish the truth.
And that's what didn't happen in this case. Again and again, women and children making allegations of violence against this father, Urfan Sharif, and yet never enough evidence, and yet it repeatedly happening. Weird. My guess is they weren't looking for the evidence, and then bruising, unexplained bruising, explained away by the father. You know, the judge handing the child back to the father because, was it the mother abusing? Was it the father? If you're not sure, keep the kid in care would be my answer. And then the kid turning up suddenly in a headscarf, covering most of her face, covering, we think, bruising, and then homeschooled. I mean, it wasn't like there were warning signs. There were big 10-foot high billboards glowing neon red saying this child is at risk, and everyone ignored those signs.
Yes, indeed, they did. And of course, there will be an inquiry, and what will happen at the end of that inquiry is that a nameless representative will put their glasses on, read from a piece of paper, come out with that appalling phrase, lessons have been learnt. My deep fear is that behind so much of this rampant neglect is a fear of being branded racist. And that, I think, cripples some individuals and organisations, because if a child came into school wearing a headdress which we strongly suspected was hiding injuries, then you take the appropriate steps, have the appropriate adults and authorities there in order to take that headdress off and search for evidence. But people these days in so mmany positions of authority are afraid to do their job
because,
properly.
well, cultural differences and the like. I always remember at my school, I remember being told, we had to we play hockey or netball, some other godforsaken sport I hated. I was rubbish at all of it. And then you had to strip down and run through the showers, and they were freezing cold. But I was told, actually, one of the reasons why schools did this was they wanted to see every kid naked to see if they were bruised. It was actually a very good safeguarding issue to see whether they were actually being beaten, because, why are you afraid of showing your body? But that's the thing. The frustrating thing when we look at, and I know we're all parents having this conversation here, is that we can't understand why someone would do this to a child, let alone their own child. But we know there are people who do. We know there are evil, awful people out there, and there are people who won't stop it when they see it happening. But when it's your job to stop it from happening, when you're a social worker, or you're a judge, or you're a police officer, or you're a teacher, and it's literally part of your job to keep children safe, why isn't there that urge to act? Is it lack of resources, being overworked, being somehow desensitised to violence against children, because the horrors that a lot of these people see in their daily working lives are so awful that they almost become anaesthetised against what might look like minor crimes against children?
When you have a multi-agency approach, the lines can somewhat get blurred in regards to who is the lead on this investigation. Is it the social services or is it the police? And I'm always in favour of the police having the lead, because, of course, they have more powers. But if you have individual officers terrified of being branded something that they're not, and
racist or xenophobic for questioning this guy,
exactly, then you end up with tragedies like this, where the blood is on the hands of so many individuals and organisations that platitudes and a statement after the inquiry simply will not wash. But the trouble is, Julia, until authorities, until bodies get a grip and act like they should do, you and I will be here, tragically, in a couple of years' time with Mr. Ingram talking about another similar tragedy.
I mean, my whole political journalist career, we've been talking about this, and at the end, I saw, Keir Starmer's statement. Questions need to be answered. And you think they don't really. Again, we don't need a review. We don't need a serious case study or review or whatever they're called. We know exactly what happened. She slipped through the cracks. People didn't, put two and two together and make four. They're so concerned about, being woke. So concerned about, filling out the paperwork. We know a lot of social workers, certainly since lockdown, have been working from home. I mean, you can't do that job from home. They're massively overworked. They're massively understaffed. They're under-resourced. They are often very inexperienced. They're not able to just walk in and go, no, this isn't good. No, getting the kid out. We're going to play, benefit the doubt. But I find it extraordinary that there was so many opportunities, 15 opportunities being missed, so many. And the fact that it had been escalated, it wasn't just, some 25-year-old newbie social worker who was dealing with it. This went up to family judges in the courts. This went up to, police level. Why, again and again and again? Not enough evidence, we're not sure. But I mean, if there's not enough evidence, we're not sure. You don't leave a kid in that home.
No, you most certainly don't. But what any subsequent review or inquiry will not include is individual and managerial accountability.
Yeah.
They always fail to deliver on that front. And until we get people being held to account for not supporting their frontline workers, for example, for not saying to them, get that warrant, get the medical staff, get the appropriate adult, take that headdress off, let's have this child examined, let's do our job, let's protect her. Until managers are held to account for not supporting their frontline staff, not training them properly, then similar cases and tragedies will only happen again.
And that the funny thing is, many parents will know the sort of the fear of sort of taking their kid to the doctor when they've had an injury. They think, oh God, I hope they don't think it's me. I mean, my daughter had an injury at a sort of sports camp one day, and I said to them, have you got it all documented? I need it to be documented because my husband took her to the doctor the next day. It's quite an injury. It's just kids falling over. But it's interesting. The doctor was very clear about questioning our daughter. On her own, and how did you get this injury? The willingness to be suspicious of families who aren't doing anything wrong, but I've got no issue with that. I would rather they played safe. But the anxiety that would cause, loving parents who are just worried about it. I said, no, it's all make sure. I said to my husband, make sure they know it's all documented that they happened at sports camp with other kids. But yet then they're not taking action when there's ample evidence that something is going horribly wrong. It's so heartbreaking. Peter, I want to also ask you about something else, and I wonder if this ties in with, again, abject failures that we're seeing in our criminal justice system generally. Metropolitan Police, the biggest police service in the country, and one you used to work for as well. This includes 999 call handlers and child protection officers. They have voted to go on strike as part of the PCS union for the right to spend more time working from home. Basically, they've been told, you need to be in the office 3 or 4 days a week instead of working from home, which they've been allowed to do over the last few years, particularly during lockdown, and they're going to go on strike. You can't be a 999 call handler. You can't be a child protection officer and work on the comfort from your own sofa, can you?
These are the civilian staff that support the police officers that want to stay at home more. Let me just tell you, I bumped into one such civilian employee of the Metropolitan Police the other day who gleefully told me they work from home and get their work done in 3 hours, which means they can walk the dog and go to the gym, all whilst getting paid out of the taxpayer purse. Greater productivity would undoubtedly be achieved by having people in the office for more occasions. I'm not completely against people working a proportion of their time from home, but in policing, with a dynamic inquiry, with quick decisions need to be made and resources deployed, so often you're in the office going to one civilian member of staff, can you please do this inquiry? Can you do that, please? Can you sort this out? Can you sort that out? and off we go.
Yeah, instead of a 45-minute Zoom meeting to have that, or not being able to... Oh, no, Jane's not in again until Monday, so we can't do it. It is unbearably frustrating, isn't it? And when we can see the failures right now, I don't know how people can justify it. I mean, genuinely, I know the government is looking at getting rid of, I think, is it 10,000 civil servant jobs? Well, yeah, those Met civilian staff... Bye. Thanks for coming. I don't think we'll miss you. Peter Bleksley, really appreciate you joining us, former Metropolitan Police Detective.